That's pretty much it for.
Yeah, I think that's for. I guess we can either go.
I did have. It was more of a curious question, not with this, but it's more so because it's something I've been hearing more recently that it isn't as known as I thought it was. It's a historical thing, and since you tend to point out historical things, I was curious if you were familiar with it. And it has to do with slavery. But are you familiar with the guy William Wilberforce?
That he's not the English politician, is he?
Yes.
The one that put into the English Parliament to get rid of slave trade and to practically use the English Navy to stop the slave trade of everybody else.
Yeah. He's the one who really pushed for years to end the slavery in England.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was part of Parliament to do that. I think it was like right before he died, it was accomplished.
Yeah, there was a movie about like Amazing Grace that
I thought it was called William Wilberforce, but it might have been called that. I had wondered because I've come across a few things so I came across something online where with that guy Jordan Peterson and the other guy Charlie Kirk, where there's a clip of them where they were talking about him. And it was about probably 15 to 20 minute clip of them because I think they had like an hour or two conversation themselves, but it was a clip where they were talking about him, but they were surprised that they had only recently found out about him. What the surprise was that conservatives weren't. I think it was in general, but that the fact that conservatives wouldn't know about this guy. And I think they said that they each found out about him within. One of them had found out about him like within the past couple of years. The other one had found out about him within the past 5 years. I heard that. I was like, I've known about this guy for like 10 or 15 years. How did you? How was that? And also I had a guy I used to work with who he was big into history. Mm-hmm. And different historical facts and whatnot. And when I brought William Wilberforce, because we were talking about slavery and stuff like that, and I brought this guy up, William Wilberforce, and he didn't know who I was talking about. I was like, because I think he was talking about how we were the first ones to end it. I was like, well, actually, England was the first one, I believe, to deal with this, and then we eventually did it ourselves here. But no, William Wilberforce was the first one to do that, and he didn't have any idea what I was talking about. I'm like, I thought you were into history.
Yeah, and I think possibly, we probably, by the time the 1700s come along, we normally, for history, tend to focus more on the U.S. right there because we have, across over here in North America, we're we're on a completely different continent. Oceans separate us, and so we focus mostly on the part that where what history comes over to us here to the United States. And so we'll be like, okay, we will learn about Egypt, Babylon, Israel, Greece, Rome. These are the countries that rose up to kind of give us some beginning parts, and then we kind of focus over to England, because that's where 13 colonies come from is there. And so once we break our Declaration of Independence, we've had our war, England has now disappeared. And I would say the same thing happens for us with Charlemagne, where there's a period of history right there where we're not talking much about England, but we're talking about Charlemagne, which is France and Germany, because that part right there kept the part of during that time period, Islam was coming up through Spain, and Charlemagne defeated them there in the southern France, and so France becomes big right there, and that's part of like shared culture, and then he moves over to England because that's where what we think of the idea of where America is coming from is like it's traversing across over from the like Middle East to Greece to Rome to France to England, and then finally it's over here in America, and we forget all what's going on over in the lands that at first come from. We forget fully about what the Crusades, because that part was like we were done with the period of Israel and such from our history past because we were over here in Rome and France and England, and so we forget exactly what happens there, and we're also forgetting like the nations of Germany and France. And so by the time period of America, we are ignoring what's happening in Europe, and with William Wilberforce doing that, we have that. We don't realize quite that's going on right there, and we probably was a big influence on a part of our nation's history that we don't probably talk about is probably during a time period we decided, hey, we're not going to get slaves anymore from Africa. Every slave has to be from the U.S. And that's probably, I think that's the time period he was at. Because that influence to be like, we can't compete against the British Navy that is now actively fighting slave trade.
So you think it's because of what England was doing or Britain was doing that we decided to stop because we couldn't compete with that?
We couldn't compete with that. And so those sort of ideologies just popped up randomly, but it's actually probably I think like the 1820s or 30s when like the U.S. couldn't get slaves from Africa. Was everybody like they'd be born into slavery there?
Yeah, I believe that I knew of him specifically because of that movie. I remember, I believe my grandpa had gotten the movie and had us watch it and whatnot, and so we found out about it through that. But I thought because, and I think I want to say he probably, sorry that I just saw it later on at the Christian bookstore, but I thought that's where he got it. But I think that I assumed because we had seen it that, and it stuck out well enough that pretty much everybody was aware, or a number of people were aware of it, and I've been finding out more. I've been coming across here and there more. I was like, wait, people don't know about it? Okay, whatever.
Yeah, I do remember that movie. I think my grandparents played it too, and it was a good movie. But I think it was during a time where Christian movies were either being overzealous about the message of Christianity, being like
Cheesy would be the word.
Cheesy. Probably, yeah, cheesy would be the better word.
It was a good movie, but yeah, a lot of movies would tend to be cheesy.
And like, we probably see the ones that we think of the ones that popped out, that like that Amazing Grace or Facing the Giants.
Yeah, those were good movies.
Yeah, there are ones that were good that during that time period that stuck out. But because there were so many ones being made that were cheesy, probably people didn't quite watch all of those ones.
Yeah, I guess I didn't assume that he was popular because that movie, like the story of the guy was popular because of that movie. I just thought I thought because I was aware of him, he was well known. And I found out, oh, okay, maybe more people aren't aware of this guy like I thought they were. I guess at least conservatives were aware of him just because it seemed like that was conservative. I don't know. But that's why I connect dots with that. So I was like, oh, this guy's not as popular as I thought he was. Like, not as known as I thought he was.
Yeah.
So,
That makes me kind of now question of like, how many people know about C.S. Lewis?
Yeah, that'd be. Um, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think a number of Christians know because they hear him quoted,
Yeah.
but besides that, there's like you might hear people know about Chronicles of Narnia, especially because of the movies now. But besides that, like I don't know who you're talking. Well, yeah, you know, because
movies aren't doing so well. It's like, those are getting butchered.
But yeah, because I think even that same guy I worked with, I don't think he was too aware of any of that stuff either. Like, although he wasn't, he wasn't really a nerd with that. He was more of he enjoyed Greek stuff, Greek novels or stories. But yeah, so that wasn't really a historical type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also had a question for you.
Okay.
So I'll probably just go like a little bit longer before. But the question I have was, so I was starting to think of, you've heard of like the Venezuelan boats and such.
Being bombed?
Bombed.
Yeah.
And did you hear about what, like, double tapping?
Yes, I believe I did.
So yeah, like the double tapping where you've injured the person and they're incapacitated and you decide to kill them, do the second shot.
Mm-hmm.
When they have no ability to harm you.
Mm-hmm.
But like for that, it got me sort of thinking about an idea of between. For me, was seeing two different responses in the political spectrum of left and right of where people say if the left is open borders and the right is closed borders. And I was thinking about it in a slightly different way of, if you look at the left is with the idea of open borders is that you have a lot more people coming in, like innocent people, but you have some evil people coming in.
Yeah.
And such right there. So you have that situation where you allow a bunch of innocent people in, but there's a few evil people there. But the other situation of having to close is that you aren't having the innocent people or evil people come in, but you are killing innocent people at the same time as stopping evil. So and that's, I would say, the close borders where that idea of one side is you let people in and let a little bit of evil come in, or you don't let the evil in, but you kill a little bit of the innocent.
How are you killing them?
So the part of the idea is that some of the boats that we have killed off the coast of Venezuela cannot be are not drug boats. They are fishermen.
I heard about something about that.
And where the boats that they have cannot possibly reach the U.S. or other boats or hold drugs of the amount that they say, or else one of two things is the boat will sink, and for them to carry that, they need more gas, which causes the boat to sink even more. So
So you're saying that they could have never, or after they hit them with bombs, they couldn't.
They could never
Okay.
have reached the U.S.
So they were never a threat. So why even mess with them? That's what you're getting at.
Mess with them, and that they're for it to be that they are actually fishermen, and there have been other governments that have confirmed that they were fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
Right there. And
But
so,
do you know what governments?
you have Colombia
Okay.
and like UK, Canada.
So the people we trust.
Yeah. So that sort of got me into the thought process of like with the left and right of one side of having a bunch of innocent people come through, but you have a little bit of evil coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is where you close it, where you're not letting evil people come in, but you're also killing some innocent people. You're not killing. So it's like, it's not like, I think of the calculation of you have 100 people, 95 of them are innocent, 5 people are evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the left, it would be like all of them come in, and then say on the right, it's like those 100 people, 95 are innocent, 5 are evil, and you kill 2 evil and 3 innocent.
Okay.
Like, but those people are not coming in, but you have practically killed some innocent people in your pursuit of keeping evil out. Like, what do you think is a better sort of stance? Because I'd say it's kind of definitely a gray area. It's one which we desire to be like, hey, it'd be better if the most ideal situation is 95 innocent people live and are helped, and the 5 evil people are brought to judge justice
After they've committed the crime.
Yeah, and so that's like the most ideal part.
Maybe it depends on how clever they were and how widespread their violence was.
But I mean, like for like how well spread. I mean, you could say in the justice they got the death penalty.
Yeah, but I mean at the same time. So at that point, I mean, I'm not sure if that's really addressing the actual question you had, but at that point, you're dealing with trying to protect your own citizens, and so at that point, outsiders aren't really your priority. If things have become bad within the country, then people on the outside aren't necessarily your priority. Your own people are. And so it would make sense. I was like, sure, you only have 5 who are bad, but will we catch them before they do anything? And if they do something, how bad will it be? And we let all of y'all in because of that. Just in a sense, out of the kindness of our heart, but we don't have it. We're struggling to have a good enough system built to prevent this from happening. So our people are our priority right now.
I mean, for that, I can see that where you can have the part of like, this is our priority to protect our citizens, and we are going out to hunt those who are hurting our citizens. But the part where you're like, I'm attacking innocent people at the same time.
In the process of going after the bad people.
Yeah. That's like, okay, like, these are people who did not want to have it be part of it. That's
so. From my understanding, we're having issues with Venezuela, aren't we?
So there's like, I think it's MS-13 or something, like that's the gang member of the drugs and such that supposedly originates from like the Venezuela area.
Okay. And so, why are they saying that those boats? Are they saying that those boats could never make it to the U.S.?
Could not make it to the U.S.
Okay, but it's not. That's not to suggest that those drugs would never make it to the U.S.
The only way would be if there's a rendezvous boat, a bigger sailing vessel. So you're talking about a boat that's probably a little bit bigger than this, having to get it to a boat that's way bigger, like a cargo vessel or such.
Did they suspect that those drugs were coming here?
The suspect is that that there are drugs coming to the U.S. And that they're doing it by boat. The question for me is like, why are we targeting boats that can't make it to the U.S. or to another island?
So my thinking is that maybe you don't concern as much about it's not the boat itself, it's the drugs. And so what I'm meaning by that is those boats may not be able to make it to the U.S., but that doesn't mean those drugs won't be able to. And so you're stopping them before they even have a chance. And if they suspect that, if they have a strong suspicion, there's a reason why they understand that those drugs their destination is the U.S. Even if the boat that boat itself isn't, it's still an enemy because they're trying to make it to the U.S. Not through that boat, but that boat is going to go somewhere else, and through that connection, it'll make it to the U.S. So they're just trying to stop it before it even gets to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that would probably be like a reasonable thing to do, and for it, before that, we had a way of doing that, where we see, instead of launching missiles, we'd be like, okay, we're gonna put our boat in the way and be like, hey, stop, like, and then seize the boat and check. But for it, we're not doing the checking all the time. And we are blowing up the boats because for it, say, you have...
They were... Okay, so weren't they, like, understood to be intense drugs that we're having problems with here?
So, well, I guess it's like the idea of fentanyl.
Yeah, something along those lines. It's like extremely deadly. Which one is it that
Fentanyl is the one that's extremely deadly that somehow keeps being added to other drugs.
Is it also so? Something I had recently heard is that there's a certain drugs where even if you got on your skin, that, like for instance, police officers, they would have it on their clothing when they were checking stuff, and then they would like try to wipe it off, and all suddenly, just because it got into their skin, they started having reactions. I don't know if it was fentanyl. I don't know if it was fentanyl or opium or whatever. There was like it was bizarre. That's how come it's been a serious concern, is because of just how serious this drug has a reaction just to touching the skin. I'm not sure which drug that is. That could be fentanyl. If that's the case, I could see why they're so. One, they're probably ticked off with Venezuela. If this gang is able to move around, that they're not doing enough about it. And so if we're being affected by that in that serious way, I could see them doing that to be like, we're not screwing around, stop this. And it's a serious way of letting them know, stop it. Not just we're going to go check your boats. No, we're going to bomb you so that way you know that we're serious about this, because you shouldn't be doing this in the first place.
Yeah, but the problem is that if you do that and you're bombing fishermen...
Mm-hmm. The fishermen are the problem, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we're having the problem is that we're having that attitude, and for it, were the fishermen on the same boats? And so they were... No, we're just bombing the fishermen.
So they never hit the boats?
No, we're like, there's no drugs in the boats.
So they thought there were drugs, and it turned out there were no drugs, and they're just fishermen. Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
that's the part where I'm saying we're hitting a few innocent people and trying to get the drug smugglers, because for it, if you're a drug smuggler and you're like, hey, they're starting to do missiles off this coast right here, I better not do this. Well, probably a fisherman will be like, hey, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'll be the one that I'm just gonna go fishing, and then they get hit. That's it.
How did we bomb them?
Missiles,
Mm-hmm. How did we, like, where'd the missiles come from?
ships.
Ships, okay. So it's the type of thing where those ships, bigger ships, could have gone. Were they far away? I didn't look that closely at the whole thing. I've heard about it, but I haven't looked that closely at it.
So yeah, they're like far away and such, using like radar and like drones to look at the target, fire the missiles and such. When probably the better situation would be like move the boat towards the fisherman that sees
Is
it.
there a reason why they didn't? Did they explain why they didn't do that?
For them, it's to send a message. Is the message like we are serious about this? We are not going to tolerate drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like a good message to go on about, but the thing is that you are you're just targeting anybody who possibly goes outside the economic zone of Venezuela.
Right.
Like any boat that comes out.
So does that mean that they're outside of the area they're supposed to be in?
So then it becomes international water.
Right. And so they're outside of the area they're supposed to be in?
Not exactly. People can fish in international waters.
Okay.
So if they're in those zones, they are allowed to do stuff like fish in those zones.
Okay. And international, I believe, so in international waters, I imagine you can attack vessels without as many repercussions because you're not in their territory.
There's still rules of engagement,
right?
Such for you're still supposed to see.
I guess it's not. I guess what I'm thinking of more so is it's not like a declaration of war type of thing. I would imagine if you're not in their territory.
It'll probably be viewed less as acts of war, more of provocation.
Right, I can see that.
To be like, hey, why is it that whenever I go out into international waters, you're attacking my ships and such? And for it, my guess is Venezuela probably knows if you go count on military might, Venezuela is not going to be the strongest against the U.S.
Right? Aside from the drugs.
Yeah, but
the
idea.
The initial question you had was, is this appropriate for us to handle it this way, or should we have done it better because they were at least supposedly or allegedly or whatever, just innocent fishermen that got caught in the crosshairs of us trying to warn them.
So, for it, my question is like, of course, my ideal is to have us have it where like the 95 people are innocent people aren't hurt. Get the 5 people who are doing evil
before they commit the crime, because that would be the ideal.
I gotta have some God powers a bit like I know you're about to do it. That's Minority Report, but be like afterwards, otherwise, or caught in the
Background
act.
check, buddy.
What?
Background check. That's what it's there for.
But I mean, if you had the background check and it'd be like, oh, you brought drugs, and that should be the part where it's like you're under arrest, but for like the background check,
No, you just can't come in.
Yeah.
Just can't come in. Oh, you're this. No, you're not allowed to come here.
Yeah, but for it seems like we are in the situation of either being brought. So far, we're in two different sort of extremes of like save all who are innocent and let a few evil people in, or a few innocent people die trying to stop the evil people.
So essentially, what you're dealing with is either we get hurt or someone else gets hurt.
Yeah, the idea.
And which is better? Which is preferred?
Yeah. Do you the part there of do we prefer that? Of course, we always prefer. We would don't want our people to get hurt, but it's also the question of, are we also in the one situation we have is we are doing the same sort of things by causing harm to other innocent people, to be like, for us to be like, hey, so say for it, like the idea that this drug or crime organization over here, they're hurting bunch of our people. They're hurting a bunch of our people, and we said like, no way. We cut that off. We stopped them from coming in from doing that, and then we're coming over here, and we're like, hey, the people that aren't involved in this, we're going to hurt them too. And so it's kind of, we're doing a tit for tat.
So did they actually suspect those fishermen were a problem?
That's the problem, is we don't know. We haven't been given the information, but except for people after the fact are going, hey, these information we have is that these are fishermen, like most of these are fishermen.
Talk about from the other countries.
Yes.
So no one from here has clarified or verified what our understanding was of who they were.
Yes.
Because the way I could see it is, it would be different if we let a group of people come in and 5 of them were not innocent, and they were doing harm. The difference between that and what we're doing is that they intentionally wanted to harm people who they knew were innocent. Like part of profit or whatever, they intentionally wanted to hurt people who were innocent. They just don't care. Whereas with us, it shouldn't be that we are intentionally wanting to hurt people that are innocent. I wouldn't see that there may be like question, but I don't think that there was intention to. It wouldn't make any sense that there would be intention to. We know they're innocent, but we're still going to do it. I mean, unless I guess what you're saying is that it's just a way of warning them.
Well, I mean, there is a part of intention, but if your intention, you're like, I'm wanting this to give intention that we're fighting this evil, but if I am willing to practically do stuff recklessly, that is also an evil in itself.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
We're not being like wise about it, that we're actually just going in it recklessly, that we're in ourselves committing a grave evil as well.
If that's what's going on, then that would be a problem. It sounds like there's not actually enough information. The best we're doing is getting information from other governments from other countries, who I don't think we necessarily have the best relationships with right now. Canada would be one. I'm not sure about the UK. I know that their things are questionable that are happening over there, but I'm not so sure we have bad relations with them. But we don't have great relations with Canada right now, with how things are going between Trump and the presidents over there.
Yeah. But I mean, for the part of like we're like doing it, the other countries are questioning, and then for it they're coming after going, hey, like there's our fishermen. It seems like it could be like one or two things. There's one that we're really reckless in our fight,
Mm-hmm.
or we're getting a bunch of bad data, and that could either be from ourselves, because they stopped now, I believe, sharing data with us, and that's mostly after the double tapping.
Who's they?
UK and Canada.
Now, when you say double tapping, my understanding is that they had bombed them twice.
Bombed them twice.
Right.
And they're clinging to the wreckage of their ship.
They're clinging?
To the wreckage of their ship.
Right.
And then we shot them again.
Yeah. I heard an explanation behind that, which sounded reasonable for the situation. If you're familiar with the type of situation that will happen, then it sounded reasonable that would happen. But an explanation I had heard is that if they were actually a problem, not that they were fishermen, but that they're actually a problem, then let's say you were to bomb them and they are just clinging onto their boats, that they will eventually, one of their goals would be to try to find someone to reach out to, and that they would let them know what had happened, and then things would be a further problem for us. Therefore, you make sure that they can't go get help.
That's just evil.
It's not if they're actually... No, so I guess what I'm getting at is that they're actually doing something evil. Like they're trying to sell the drugs, and that they're eventually going to get to us. And so if they're going to find some way, even if that means going... They do get bombed, but they don't die, and so therefore they're going to be able to still get to some place and let people know, and that we still... And because of that, people are able to take those drugs and still bring them to the U.S., that's evil in and of itself. And so we're trying to stop that from happening.
Even for if they're doing that, there's also for international maritime law and war times is that if that happens and they are clinging to their ship, you're not to shoot them. You are supposed to aid them, not like get them into say to another country, but you're supposed to capture them and like hold them.
Mm-hmm.
So the proper response is not to, hey, they could get to another place. The proper response is...
How far were they?
What?
How far were they? You said they were far away.
Far away?
Yeah.
Like, they're like thousands of miles away from the U.S.
From the ships that were missiling. Yeah, you said there was missiles from ships that were hitting them. How far were the ships?
Then I don't know, but
I assume not thousands of miles.
Well, see, I don't have 1,000 miles. My guess is probably like you can't see them over the horizon, but you do have drone footage of it. So like you could still definitely get there and identify with the drone anything that goes on there. But even so, if they are in the water, you are supposed to.
Because I guess part of what I would see is that if they're far enough away, would they have time to?
You're still supposed to like.
So I get what you're saying, that you're supposed to do that, but at the same time, there is an element where it's like if you don't have time to get to them, it's dumb to just let them live.
No.
If they are actually going to still manage to, it's like you kill it's like you try to shoot an enemy, and they don't die, and so they're going to go tell the other guys, hey, they shot me, and then everyone else comes over. Well, that was stupid of you for not to just shoot him. Make sure that he actually make sure he couldn't bring further problems over. That's the idea behind that I'm understanding.
So that is for that is an analogy, but you forget it's a little bit weak, I'd say, because you're saying like you're trying to shoot the guy and they could crawl over to the other person.
Yeah.
To the other side, but you're more of in the situation of they could crawl over. I'm right here. They have like no gun. The only action that they can do is like crawl on one arm.
That is usually not how that happens, from what I understand. But they would have a gun, most likely.
Yeah, but in the analogy of this is that they're out in the open ocean. The ocean is vast, and so it's practically they're crawling with one arm. Do you think and they have to crawl over no man's land to do it, to get back to Warren? Do you think that, and they're over here on your side, do you think that do you think it is better just to kill them right there or seize them and hold them captive?
It's really a question of, are they able to? That's all. I don't know if they were able to. I don't know enough about what was happening.
So
if they were able to, then that would be preferable. Yes, I agree. If it was for some reason not manageable for whatever reason, then I could see how that would be more of a struggle. I don't really know what happened.
Even so, we have laws like wartime laws are against that because they want it for sailors and such. If you sink somebody else's ship and they are stranded right there, you are not supposed to shoot them. You might have the thing of not giving aid, but they also want you to give aid, but you're not supposed to shoot them.
Okay, I mean, that does sound reasonable, but I mean, at the same time, the other way I would look at it is that it's not like we ourselves have not had stupid laws during wartime. Specifically with Obama, there's certain things he wouldn't let people do, and it hurt us a lot more than it helped. It made things overly difficult to where people were too cautious about taking care of certain situations. We've just had, and I'm not sure if it was just then, but we've had different times where we've had bad wartime laws that made us to where we were too weak with how we were able to handle things. So I get that there's laws, but that doesn't mean that the laws are appropriate to certain situations. That does sound like it would be an appropriate way to handle it, if you're able to, one, save them, but also make sure they can't do anything further, then that would make sense. To be able to save them without killing them, if that's what you're able to do. I'm not sure what the situation was, but if they're able to get back to the people, and then that becomes a further problem that they're still able to do what they were going to do, then I could see that would be a reason why you would attempt to make sure it was done complete.
Part of I'm thinking of is that we want to have those laws in place, or else we get into cruelty. part of those laws is to make us better than them, and if we don't, we are free to do the same sort of evils they are. But with it as well.
So I mean, I guess part of what I would say is I would expect them to do that, to do those things, not because of being evil, but just it tactically it does make sense at times to be able to do stuff like that. And now at the same time, like I said, if you are able to aid them and make sure they can't do anything further, that would be the preferred thing. It's if you're able to. I don't know what the situation was, if they actually were just handling things in a very poor way.
Well, I mean, from it, I mean, there's probably like for a difference in different situations, but if they're the part where they are labeled they would be shipwrecked, is you're not supposed to do the double tapping, because that is cruelty for it. It's not. Have you heard of like mercy killings?
Mercy killings?
Yes.
I've heard of it.
So it's practically in times of war, if they're so gravely injured, is that like you will shoot them to end the pain
Yeah.
for it. But in this situation, they are injured, but it's still the possibility of you can save them.
Right. I get it.
But for it's against your opponent still. And we expect in those situations that they do the same.
I would not expect that. I would honestly not expect that. Not during wartime. So I guess the way I'll put it this way. Like, for instance, with Putin, people have been, from my understanding, kind of surprised at how he's been handling things, because we're supposed to be, the world is, or at least the European world is supposed to be in general at peace. We're supposed to be able to almost like buddy-buddy with each other to where we're not doing these wars. All it takes is someone who doesn't care about that to be able to do something. Yeah. And that's exactly what Putin's doing. He doesn't care about that stuff. He's like, forget that. I'm going to do what I want to do. That was bound to happen eventually. You have someone who just, doesn't care. And so I would expect that from other countries as well, as like they don't care, those are rules, and I wouldn't see it as necessary. Having mercy on the person, that's ideal, but do I expect them to do that? No. I could see eventually that some countries would just not care about that. Like the smarter thing is just to wipe them out. That I would not be surprised if countries would start doing that. And to some extent, I wouldn't necessarily see it as they're evil. I would see it to me, it would actually make tactical sense that they would want to do that.
I mean, in a sense, it makes tactical, but a moral stance.
Sure, immoral, but
it's not, because for it, if I recall, there's a sort of a World War II crime the U.S. committed.
Oh, yeah.
Where a U-boat sunk a ship, and there were survivors.
Okay.
The U-boat comes up to be like, hey, this is the law of war. If there's survivors, we're supposed to aid.
Right, we brought it before, and so we didn't.
So the German U-boat aided the U.S. ship.
Okay.
The survivors, and so the U-boat is sitting on top with the people on top, so that the people don't drown.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. sees it, the U-boat, and can clearly see the people on board, and is there for trying to give the survivors back, and we decide to bomb them with our survivors on top, just because we viewed it was more necessary to get rid of the U-boats, yet we were willing to bomb our own people. on it because we chose to ignore it. They weren't charged for a war crime because we won the war, but that's a part right there. It's like, yeah, you committed a war crime.
Like a modern war crime.
Yeah, World War II are just, they were aiding survivors and you decided to bomb them.
Right.
And when that happens, when people will try their best to obey the rules of engagement and how it is, and then if they feel like the opponent is not like listening to them, they will start ignoring it, because after that incident, the German U-boats stopped doing that.
Oh, stop helping?
Yes.
Right. Because we were the ones who bombed them. They're like, okay, if you're going to do that when we're trying to help out, then forget this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But for it, it was in a way that we kept trying to do the rules of engagement, and then we call them monsters for practically trying to obey the rules of engagement. Because the same thing happened in World War One.
Who was being called monsters?
They would call the German U-boats monsters because
The U.S. would?
well, they were
Or just the world?
U.S. and the U.K. because practically in the rules of engagement, what the U-boat was supposed to do is come up to the side, be like, "Hey, we are going to engage in combat. You can surrender the boat now, or we can engage in combat." And for it, you're supposed to be like, "Okay, like we have combat." Be like, "No, we're going to have combat." They'd be like, "Okay," and then they go back, and then you get into your spaces to fight. They practically, the German U-boats would come up and do it, and then the British people would just shoot the U-boats before the declaration of, "Hey, we're going to be fighting."
Right.
And so
they could get rid of them before they were a surprise attack based off of breaking laws
and such. But then, and so it was practically a good way for the Germans to be like, "Hey, like this is a British boat," because they weren't supposed to attack U.S. boats. And then so because of that, Germany started to hit U.S. boats, which it wasn't supposed to in World War One before we entered the war. And so, and then we call them monsters because they were not doing the rules of engagement, because they were supposed to go up to the boat and be like, "Hey, we are supposed to you're supposed to do this before you attack a ship."
Right.
This course, but because somebody else decided to destroy it, not do those rules of engagement, somebody else got hurt.
Right.
So practically, for the time period that somebody starts ignoring those rules of engagement, innocent people start getting hurt.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not like I think it's ideal to do stuff outside of that. At the same time, I tend to find whenever you're having these kind of wars that you have, in a sense, war rules. I find that kind of a humorous thing, just because at that point it's closer to like a gentleman's war, because it would almost make sense that if you're having war, and I guess it really depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to actually wipe out, like say a country or something like that, then at that point that it would almost make sense that, who cares about rules, we're just going to take it over however way. I could see that being more likely, but if it's not something like that, then I could see how, okay, we're trying to complete this specific goal. Then maybe I can understand the law aspect. Okay, if we're just trying to do the specific thing, then there's no reason to deal with all this other stuff.
Oh, I say that's like it sounds pretty, but I think for it ends up way worse. Because would you say that mustard gas should be used in war?
I've heard of that. I'm not exactly sure what the reactions are to it. Is that the stuff that they use for in the concentration camps or something? Or
Do you in World War One?
I don't know what the mustard gas, what effects mustard gas has.
So practically, what you do is you put on the line of war. You open canisters, have the gas come out, have it go across the field onto the enemy line, and practically choke them out and kill them with gas.
You're asking, do I think that that's a what?
Do you think is that wrong to practically use gas to practically say like kill a bunch of people?
That you know, are the enemy that are
It's on the other side of the line. There,
of what line?
so you have a no man's land.
Uh huh.
So, and the wind's blowing this way. You're over here.
Okay.
Enemy's over here. Here's no man's land. You decide to open the gas so that the gas goes across the field towards your enemy line.
Because are you fixing to go to war or something? Are you?
You're in war right now.
Right before you did that, you're in war.
This is in the middle of war. Like this is about.
Oh, I see. That actually makes sense. Because it does make sense to be able to stop them before they can do anything to you.
I would say like there's a whole lot of in World War One because of that the Geneva Convention absolutely banned because of the nature of it.
Because they would choke them out.
It was indiscriminate. It's
Because it would go to you couldn't. Okay,
Yeah.
I see where
it practically, you come over here, you get the farm animals, you get the citizens that are down that don't have anything to do with the battle. It doesn't, the gas doesn't decide who to kill and who to live.
Right. Well, I mean, if you wanted to go that route to some extent, wouldn't grenades be similar? I mean, they're not because so I would imagine that the smoke itself, that it eventually dissipates.
Well, it kind of clings to the ground. It doesn't go up, it clings to the ground.
So eventually, until it all just clings to the ground, it keeps going.
Keeps going, you get a large amount of it that practically it's like 10 feet tall and it gets into your trenches. And so now everybody's choking and such right there.
With the specific war aspect, it would make sense. The casualties, I can see that being an issue.
Oh, because that was definitely banned. I would say definitely kind of look into why gas is banned for war.
Why gas is?
Yes.
Because I assume that the smoke grenades are still gas. So you're talking about specific kind of gas.
Specific kind of gas. So you can have ones that incapacitate, like smoke grenades, block vision, but you can't have ones that are that kill.
Like grenades. Oh, I guess that's not gas.
Yeah.
That's what do you call it? Shrapnel.
Yeah. I would definitely suggest that you take a look at why like gas and such is you're not allowed to use in war. And it's viewed as a war crime.
Well, there's a number of things that are viewed as war crimes, but I assume that the gas itself tended to travel far,
indiscriminate, and
that's why I mean. It's like because it traveled far, it was indiscriminate. It's like unless you were able to contain it in that specific area, depending on how far it could go, it's too possible that you could start attacking innocent people.
And the way of how gas kills of practically also the idea that the air you breathe is what kills you.
Right.
They view it as not a good, that is not a moral way to go.
That the air you breathe kills you?
Yes, as a way of fighting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I'd say it'd be something for you interesting to look up.
I feel like you almost trapped me because I was like, oh yeah, I guess makes sense with all the bad guys. Like, but they could did all these other things. Like, you didn't say any of that.
It's kind of trying to go with a trap right there to have you to be like, you really need to check this out because.
I mean, I already told you I didn't know I wasn't familiar with it. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I had heard of it, but I didn't know anything about it. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I would definitely, for that, double check. I would definitely, not double check, I would definitely look into it as to why.
Mm-hmm.
Because for it, like if you look into it, that part right there, you can see like, okay, like there are some things that even in war we shouldn't do. But with that, the idea that sometimes these rules of engagement prevent us from completing our objective, but also the rules of engagement are there to stop cruelty from happening, evil to be placed upon evil.
Yeah, I mean, I guess probably the other way I see it is that is it preferred? Sure, but at the same time, if the cruel person wins, I mean, what are you going to do about it? That's just, war is nasty generally. So it makes sense that if someone ends up using the gas stuff, it's a war crime, sure, but guess what? What do they care? They won. Unfortunately, that's how I would see someone who just doesn't care about that stuff being able utilizing it to some extent. Like I'd say with like, not that he's done that necessarily, but Putin with how he's decided he wanted to take territory when people were already in agreement that shouldn't happen. It's like, okay, you see it as everyone should be in agreement that we're now in this time of peace. All it takes is one person who just doesn't care.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's a nice idea, but until you have someone who's just a pain in the butt, then you have to deal with that situation and just almost like to some extent possibly stop pretending like everything is just honky dory. That you still have to deal with evil.
Yeah, I would say for it though that in the wars that we decided to not do those, to ignore more of those rules of engagement, we didn't really win those wars. When we decided to take the moral high ground in the way we engaged.
Now, do you say we didn't win it because we actually literally lost, or you just mean like because we lost the moral ground that we might as well have lost?
No, we kind of lost.
Okay.
So yeah, the ones where we decided to, the ones where we have questionable ways of how we got into them, and then we responded in questionable ways, and ignoring those rules of engagement, those places came more into turmoil.
So is it that they had the rules of engagement so that way it wasn't just because it seemed like it was cruel, but it also was like they agreed to it because, okay, well, we didn't even really accomplish our goal even in trying to use those tactics. Was that part of the reasoning behind it, or just because it seemed cruel?
There's cruelty and that other parts of if you go down that route and you don't fully complete your objectives with it, it just creates turmoil in the place that you have, and that you can't really see control.
You can't cede.
You
control?
can't have control.
Okay, gotcha.
So the example I have is like the Vietnam War.
Mhm.
Questionable starts, and we started to use questionable tactics
Right.
there. And so we didn't win the Vietnam War.
Yeah, that much I've heard about.
Yeah.
Didn't win it, and people who came back were,
Scarred.
they were not liked when they got back.
Yeah. So and that's where parts where we were definitely doing stuff that were disobey the rules of engagement a whole lot.
Right.
So that's a part where it's like where we decided to ignore it, we lost, and then we had the Persian Gulf War where we listened to that and we won the first Persian Gulf War. So I have to say, there is some merit to it.
Right. You win if you
What?
So you win if you follow it. So,
You win with it if you follow it, because also your own people are probably more aligned to do it.
right. Well, I need to head out.
Yep. So for that's going to be it. Thank you. Please drop a like, a subscribe, a follow, whatever it is that the platform is.
Yeah.